Hey everyone, welcome to Road Trip to Bliss. My name is Lisa. I'm your driver and your host. And today I'm here with Ania Markiewicz. She's an intuitive coach. And Ania, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for your time and tell everybody all about you. That's what they're here for.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. Um, Gosh, my story is kind of so complex and never know where to start. But uh, honestly, since I was pretty much a child, I've always been into energy work and kind of surrounded in that realm of healers and alternative kind of medicine. And I always loved it. I was always drawn to it. The body always fascinated me, and just I didn't know kind of where to go with it or what to do, but yeah, it was just always amazing to me. So um, later on, I went to massage school right after high school. And that was really interesting to me. I loved helping people, feel good and with their bodies, and like all the muscles and everything kind of made sense to me. But right after pretty much short time, I realized that the same people were coming with the same issues and always the same muscles kind of hurting them. Even though, we worked at it, and they didn't even do anything to kind of re-injure themselves, so to speak.
Mm,
And so I'm like, there's so much more that has to be to the body and what lies beneath it. So I got into integrative manual therapy, which is testing the body and listening to the body to kind of what it says to us. Whether it's different symptoms that we have, where is there a blockage? Is our lymphatic system or our digestive system
mm,
flowing properly? Um, do we are we eating enough of the foods, and are we eating the foods that are good for us? Because even though something is good for everybody, might not be good for you at the moment. Same with kind of supplements. So I kind of got into that, and it was really awesome helping my clients just feel better, kind of get their health under control somewhat. And then again, a couple years went by, and I'm like, there's more. And so I got into more of the spiritual realm of things, which was the energies, the chakras, everything kind of that surrounds us, and how the people around us have an effect on our energetical body, but also physical body, and how to clear that and how to set up energetical boundaries. Um, so that was really fascinating and really cool, how this world that we don't even see and aren't even aware is there and is has a huge effect on us. Then, like I said, my journey just kind of keeps taking me on all these different spots. Then I realized how much of our inner child and childhood trauma has an impact on us, and how these emotions get stored in our bodies. Louis Hay kind of talks about that in the book Heal Your Own Body, where there's certain emotions that get stuck in certain organs or certain body parts, like anger gets stored in the liver, and fear gets stored in the kidneys, and things like that. And peeling back the layers with people, it started to make sense that there was some anger issues, and they had liver problems, not necessarily anything huge, but just kind of some kind of misalignment, so to speak, of a certain area of the body. And so then that led me to my last kind of uh, little thing that I found out is our mindset, right? Because trauma isn't really what happens to you, but trauma is how you respond to something, which kind of ties everything together. It's that mind, body, spirit connection, because it all starts with our thoughts. um if we're constantly thinking that we're stressed, that we're stupid or we're sick, is going to have a huge impact on our physical body and our day-to-day life, because we're just going to project that into our world. So getting that in check, getting our thoughts aligned with what we really want, and then taking care of, like I said, not only the physical things and what we eat and working out, but also the mental aspect of it all. So I like I said, I am a very firm believer in checking all the boxes and working on all categories, because I don't think trying to get healthy, even if you don't have, like a chronic disease or anything, but just upping your
Mhm.
health, it's all, you have to look on all the levels, because you can't just do one without the other. If you're eating super healthy but you're in a toxic relationship or a toxic environment and constantly being down on yourself, and constantly stressed and all that, your body isn't going to respond to that, those salads every day. It's not going to. So that's kind of my story. And I have helped myself kind of become a healthier person in all these categories. It's obviously a work in progress, as always. Um, but that's why I'm so passionate about helping others, because I know it is possible. So
So tell me, how do you now in your current practice, how do you help people? What types of programs do you offer? And how do you integrate all of that, the mind, body, and soul? Because you're absolutely right. And I had a friend of mine actually, her husband was going through some cancer treatments, and when he would be okay, he would be feeling okay in the morning, and they would go to his doctor visit, and the doctor would tell him, oh, his numbers dropped a little bit or whatever, and he would come
yeah,
home and he would feel sick. He would go from feeling okay for as it
yeah.
is, and then go hear that negative, anything, the slightest thing negative, and he would come home and actually be physically sick. So
Yeah.
just hearing it was so powerful. So yeah, you're absolutely
So
right.
I don't know if but I think it's pretty sure it's in Japan. It's somewhere in Asia, where actually a lot of times, if an elderly person is diagnosed with cancer or any kind of chronic disease, they actually don't tell them. And
Mm,
they say that they actually live longer. They'll give them some kind of meds and supplements to kind of help with their pain and aches, but they're saying those people not knowing and actually makes them live longer, because a lot of times it's that, like you're saying, it's that fear, it's that worry, it's that stress that comes with a disease or a label of a disease that
right.
gets to us rather than the actual disease.
Well, and then another thing that relates to the physical part of it, I remember when I was after my divorce and I was trying to going through kind of like you said, rediscovering myself and learning about chakras. And I'm like, I'm 40 something and I don't know anything about these things. Learning all these things as you go through life, and you're like, wow, this is interesting, but it's all starts to make sense, right? And I remember going to a yoga class and they were focusing on the hips, and they were saying, the teacher said, your emotion, your like your pains and all that gets stuck. I don't know if you've heard this, that your pain gets stuck in your hips. And she was focusing that whole class on releasing tension or whatever in your hips. And I did, and I have a problem with my back, so my hips are not very flexible to begin with. So, even sitting that way is painful. But I did it. I did the class and I cried like a baby after. Like, just out of nowhere, I just started bawling, and it was that release of emotions. But anyway,
Yeah.
aside from that, tell people how what do you do to help them and get those 3 things all together?
Yeah. So I work with when I see clients in person, um, then I kind of incorporate, like I said, I incorporate a little bit of a massage and like the IMT and which is the integrative manual therapy, as well as like the psyche. So I kind of combine everything, but I can
Mhm.
also do it virtually, which looks
Mhm.
obviously no massage part,
Right.
unfortunately. Um, but I use body code or emotion code, and look at what emotions are stuck and what misalignments are happening in people. And I can do it virtually, because I can connect with somebody's energy and just
Mm.
um, it's kind of like I take on their energy, and then I get in tuned with what is happening, and then I do a lot of things with muscle testing. So then I'll muscle test my own body as if it
Oh.
was theirs, uh, and um, get all the answers that I need. So yeah, I definitely work with, you know, kind of like I said, mind, body, spirit, and I'm actually currently working on developing a 6 weeks intensive program for people that want to, kind of take that first leap towards something, whether they don't know where to start, or they're kind of starting but not sure which direction to go. And it's like I said, it's 6 week intensive, meeting twice a week, and it's going to be a lot of education, a lot of empowering, because my goal at the end of it is that people will feel so empowered that they will know kind of what to do, which direction to take, and how to listen to their body and get those that negative mind chatter and those limiting
Hmm.
beliefs down, and get their body, to communicate with them better, and for them to listen to it better. So
So do you find that people that come to you, do they need like a number of sessions, or how do they know where to begin? Or do you just do that in your, consultation with them and figure out what they need to focus on more? Or what do you think? I guess what I'm asking is what do you look at first? What's the first thing you do with a client to determine what they need?
well, first it's just a conversation. It's like, okay, where you are at right now, and where do you want to go, right? Where do you want to be? Like, what are our goals? Because
Okay.
you can see changes within one session, but is it like one session, is going to give you a little bit of, relief, or, and a little bit of change, but is it, where do you want to take this, right? Like, are you just looking for a little bit of a relief, or are you looking for like a kind of lifetime change, right? So I would say usually within 3 to 5 sessions um is enough for people to be like, okay, like I know kind of what road I am. I have, kind of, I do a lot of stuff with like meal plans and supplements. Um, and just kind of, like I said, I'm all about educating and empowering people, right? So I want to guide you which road to take, and it's a process, right? And it's all about what people do, right? Like, I'm here just to kind of guide you. It's not what I do, it's what you're doing,
Right.
right? So the times where we're not meeting, what are you following through with your diet? Are you following through with, journaling, or whatever other exercises that, were given to you for that week or two? um
And it's like nobody's the same, right? There's
no.
no one size fits all thing. Like you and I were talking before the show. It's what works for you may not work for me, so it
Exactly.
really is a personal journey. And it's funny when you were talking about your way through this, you know, getting here, right? It's a road. That's why I
Yep.
call this show Road Trip to Bliss, because it's a road trip
Yep.
and it never ends, and I think that's another misconception a lot of people have. And I have a feeling you believe this too, that there's no I got here and I'm cured and I'm healthy and I've reached
No.
the top, right? It's always I think that's where a lot of disappointment comes in with people. They think that they're gonna reach this level of I'm
Yeah.
here, and then that doesn't happen.
Well, I feel like because that's what we're taught, right? We're not taught to enjoy the journey. We're taught
Right.
to get to this goal and then be happy. No,
Right,
happiness,
right.
health, it all comes with the journey. It's a learning process. I mean, I'm still constantly learning about my own body and about clients' body. People will ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know, but let's find out together. Let's dig in and see what happens. Um, and like I saying, everyone's different. So, even for my sessions, I don't ever prepare ahead of time, because each session is different and each client is different. So I don't know what we're going to work on. Sometimes, people are like, well, this is what I want to tackle. But their body's like, no, we need something else to focus on right now.
Mm.
It's not up to us. It's about up to your body, what it needs. Right. Um, and
And
yeah, just listening to it.
were you always doing virtual, or is that something that you've had to adjust to with
Yeah.
the
Adjusting to
pandemic?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, adjusting to it. Like I said, I do a lot of, one-on-one. in person. But yeah, definitely adjusting and trying to make it work. But honestly, I kind of like it because I realized that opening up to doing it online opens up the whole world. And I love to travel, and I love to meet, excuse me, love to meet people from all around the world. So this just works out.
It works out, right? Yeah,
Yes.
it's kind of interesting the things that we didn't think we could do, online and virtually are now
Yeah.
just a way of life, right? So things
Yeah.
can change, and I think that's another important factor is I also think people believe that they're going to obtain this level of spirituality, physical fitness, whatever it is, and then my life's not going to have any more problems, right?
It does
Isn't that
not
what
work like that.
happens?
Unless you're dead. I'm sorry, it doesn't work.
Hey,
Constantly evolving. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. I don't know if you felt, the shift in the earth the last week. It's been insane and intense. And, people have been kind of coming down with some colds and just
yeah,
having headaches and muscle aches. And it's like that your body needs to adjust. Your physical and spiritual and emotional body needs to adjust to that. And you need to listen to we're here, we're part of everything else. So you can't just be like, I'm just gonna be, you know, one and then that's it. No, we're what's the quote? Like the only thing that's constant is change, right? Like,
right. Exactly.
and that's what we need to
Exactly.
tune into. And yeah, I don't believe there is this, I sometimes meet people who are like, I'm enlightened and I know, and I'm like, oh gosh, no, I don't believe that. Because, you know, people will ask me, like, oh, you know so much. And I'm like, I feel like I don't know anything,
Right? It's true. It's so true. And I think a lot of people, like we talked as well before the show, is people think, well, I'm not there yet, so it's kind of like cleaning the house for the cleaning lady or,
Yeah,
losing weight before you start going to the gym. It's like, if I do this, and then I can do that.
yeah,
Right? And that's where people, I think, get tripped up too is, well, she knows everything. She knows all this stuff. But
uh,
I'm like you, I feel like a baby sometimes, like I'm just
yeah.
learning things, but that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of the trip is enjoying the
But
ride.
speaking of babies, I feel like we need to actually tune into the young ones, the kids, and like listen to them because they're so much more in tune with things and so much more aware of certain things that we get caught up with life and we just don't pay attention to things. But I have my two little nephews, and sometimes I'm just in awe of the things that they say and the things that they do, and it's just like, when did you get so smart? Like, when they know to like just stop and appreciate things, and
Right?
just the way of thinking, it doesn't have all that programming yet, and
Exactly.
it's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, definitely listen to your kids and like, the wisdom that they have, like pay attention to that because there's a lot to be learned from that.
And you mentioned when we were talking before too about inner child, which is something I'm very interested in. And can you talk a little bit about that and how you incorporate that into your practice?
So that actually, I didn't study it. It just kind of something that came to me. um was a lot of times when I was tapping into clients and they're like, oh, I have this physical issue, or this is what's going on, or just even energetical clearing. I would get either messages or ages or situations or people would pop into my head, um just kind of like a download. And I would
Mm,
ask people, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm getting, but I'm getting, let's say, like age 5, a male, some kind of trauma, and like this is the emotion that's coming with it. And I'm like, I don't, it means nothing to me, obviously. And people would start like, oh my gosh, yeah, now that you mention it, I remember, so this and this happened. And I was like, all right, so let's release that, right? So like,
mm,
just start playing with more and more. And like I said, again, I use a lot of muscle testing. So I'll muscle test clients, like, is there like an event from childhood that needs to be released? Are there emotions that are trapped with it? What are emotions? Like, does it involve anybody? And kind of doing that. And then balancing out the brain um with psyche. So that's another piece that I do, balancing out the brain so it doesn't recognize it as trauma anymore, but
Mm.
neutralizing it so that it's just an event rather than something traumatic that happened to us.
And how do you do that? How do you do that? And how do you do the muscle testing too? I'm really curious.
So muscle testing, it's a lot of like there's all different ways you can do, like a pendulum, you can do all types. One that is super known is like you can put your arm out, or you can
Mhm.
put your finger out, and you can say, like I would say, my name is Anya, and then you press and it stays, you know, one way. And then if you and you're keeping it not super tense, but just keeping it straight, resisting but not super hard. But if I
Mhm.
say my name is Lisa, the resistance, it's a lot harder to resist. And I'm this finger stays, the same way, like the same strength. But when you say something that isn't true for you, your body responds, the nervous system
Hmm.
responds, and it just kind of shuts down, and that you get a weak response. And when it's true, you get a strong response.
Oh, wow. I
So,
thought
and it
that's
works
what
with
you were talking
anything.
about.
Excuse
Okay.
me?
I said I thought that's what you were talking about because my Reiki master that did sessions on me, she did that to me one time in a class with another, we were doing a like a little training with her, and then she did that, and I was like blown. Another time, my mind was like, "Whoa!" And so I was
Yeah.
wondering if that's what you were talking about. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, and there's different types. Some people do like the circle and then like the finger, whether it goes through this finger or like pressing on
Mhm.
the arm. So there's all different types of techniques to muscle test. But yeah, it's a way to communicate with the body, right? Because
Mm.
sometimes, I mean, I've worked with clients where they don't have memories of abuse, but there's clearly been something where we talk about it, or we start releasing, their body starts shaking, or they start crying, and they're like, I don't remember anything, but there's been something, right? So the body remembers, our cells remember, but sometimes because it's so traumatic, our brain blocks it out because it's just too much, and we can still clear it. We don't have to remember it. So
And how do you teach the other thing you were talking about where it just becomes an event and not like a traumatic?
that is a session that I can't teach people to do on their own, but that is something that during a session we'll neutralize. We'll do a balance um, with somebody. I put them in a certain position, and it helps
Mm.
neutralize it. It helps your right and left brain communicate. So that a lot of times that's what happens in traumatic events is either your logical brain or your emotional brain kind of gets thrown off. And sometimes we'll like, well, logically, this makes sense and this is how it should be. And emotionally, you're like, this doesn't make sense, right?
Right, right,
And we get so
right.
emotional over some things. And this helps kind of get them talking together. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, I don't have to be so emotional and, like, or
Mhm.
over analyzing it like logically. And it also helps with the conscious and subconscious talk as well, so that everything's on the same page. It's like, okay, we're safe. Like, we don't no
Right,
longer have to relive that trauma, right? Or live in that past moment, because that's what
right,
happened.
right, exactly. That's funny you mentioned that too about the subconscious because I remember years ago being in a seminar and this guy talking about subconscious, and what stuck out to me was him saying that when you go see a scary movie and your body responds, even though you know it's a scary movie, you know it's not real, but you jump when,
Yeah.
the monster pops out, and it's like, yeah, that's true.
Well, that's the scary part, and also the beauty of our mind, right?
Right.
That, like, because our mind doesn't know what's real, and that's why you know visualizations and all that works. So like I'll take my clients sometimes through like a meditation where I'll have them lay down, close their eyes, and go back to that event, let's say, and picture it, but we're going to change it, right, to something
Mm,
else, because your like I said, your brain doesn't know what's real or not. So This is why, we're so easily programmed. So it matters, the things we watch, the things we listen to, the people we surround ourselves with, right? Because it all makes an impact, because your brain doesn't know. Same as like it doesn't understand the word no. So if you're constantly saying, I don't want to be sick, all your brain hears, your subconscious hears is sick.
Right. Right.
So your body's focusing on the sick part. Say,
Right.
I'm healthy, or I want to be healthy, rather than I don't want to be sick. So
Right.
the words that we speak are very, very powerful. And like I said, the things that we think, and you know the affirmations and the visualizations are awesome, but then it also comes with all this programming, because you can have all these, you can think, oh my gosh, like I'm healthy, and all that, and I'm rich and all that. But if you have subconscious programming of, I'm not worthy of it, or I don't deserve, or it's not safe. Sometimes it's, people don't feel
Yeah.
safe, to for that, or like I want to be in this victim mentality, because then, my husband takes care of me, or my wife takes care of me, or
Mm.
whatever the case is. Then you're not going to get out of it, even though you can be saying over and over these affirmations. So affirmations are great, but they only work on the conscious brain, and you really need to get
Right.
down to the subconscious to reprogram it, clean the virus out, and then you can input the new programming. We're just like a computer.
Right? And that's funny because it's funny you say that too, because I also am a believer, and I'm sure you're like me. This just comes as you're growing down this
Yeah.
path. You stumble upon these things and you hear these things and you're like, oh my God, it makes so much sense, right? Because this is stuff I've accumulated over the last several years. This isn't something you just learn in a course, right?
Oh, of
And
course.
I remember too, thinking to myself, if you're seeking things, you'll find them. I'm a firm believer in not no coincidences, right? That
Yes.
nothing is a coincidence. That you're whoever's watching this video, whoever's listening to this podcast is meant to hear this. Is meant to see it, right? Do you
Yeah.
feel the same way that as you trust, which is hard for a lot of us, but as you trust the journey, that other things start coming your way that you need, that you didn't
Yeah,
know you
because
needed?
you get aligned with the universal flow, right? And then it's like, you start seeing the 1111s and like all
Mhm.
the aligned
Oh my
numbers, right?
god.
Right. You know what I'm talking about.
My daughter's going through that, and she's like, "Why am I seeing all these numbers?"
It's
It's
this
true though,
universe
right?
telling you that it's got your back, that you're right on the right path, right? Like I'll see different animals, and sometimes I'll just look it up, like, what is the spirit animal of this, right? And like, what is the meaning? But it's nice to have that support, right? It's nice to know that one, you're not alone in the world, and that there's just some kind of higher power that is kind of watching over you, right? Like it gives me comfort.
Right? It does. It definitely does. And I think the hardest part, or what do you think, if you agree that the hardest part is for us to trust? Trust
Yeah.
ourselves, trust other people, trust the
Yeah.
universe, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the hardest part is the
Well,
trust.
again, it goes back to our programming. So, I'm actually was going to make a video on this on my YouTube channel, but I'll share it here too. So, my little nephew was recently, my grandparents were watching him, and my nephews are raised totally different than we were. But he fell off his bike, and not crying, but just like, oh, it hurts. Like he didn't want to get up right away. And my grandpa's like, it's fine, just walk it off. And my nephew's like, no, but it hurts. And my grandpa's like, you're okay. Like you're gonna live. And he's like, he was so taken back by my grandpa. Finally gets up and gets going. And then that night, he tells my sisters, like, how can grandpa tell me it doesn't hurt? He doesn't know my body. And she's like, you're right. And think about in your childhood, how many times you were told, stop crying.
Mm. Oh,
It doesn't
yeah.
hurt. Whatever. So as a kid, you're being told your feelings aren't valid. What
Mm.
you're feeling isn't real. Like, I
Oh,
know
yeah.
better than you do. So what over time, wouldn't that make it question your own self-worth and our own thoughts, like, am I really feeling this? My whole life everybody's told me that what I'm feeling isn't real, so are my feelings real and valid,
Hmm.
right?
Wow. Interesting. That's
I know.
very true. Pour
Mind blowing.
another mindfully. See, that's amazing. Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's. I mean, imagine how many times, and it's not just. I always tell people too. It's not just your parents. It's a
No.
teacher. It's a kid at school. Kids are freaking mean. Can you imagine like what kids? If you think back to what I was bullied horribly as a child, and I know the pain. I know a lot of my pain comes from that.
Yeah.
So we automatically think, oh, my childhood traumas or whatever came from my parents, but it doesn't have to be a parent. It could be a teacher, another kid, a sibling,
Yeah.
right? A friend, a so-called friend,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
but when you're young, all you want is love and acceptance. I mean, even when you're older, that's all we want, right? We want
Right.
love and acceptance. And when you don't get that, it's like you start questioning, like, well, what's wrong with me? Why
Mm,
why does why am I not worthy of being loved and
lovable.
accepted, right?
Right. Right. That's so
And
true.
then all those doubts and all these programming start, developing, and it's just a rabbit hole of things. So, like I said, that's I've worked a lot with that on my own. Uh I had, this programming of just not being good enough for people and, for circumstances, and it just kept showing up because that's what happens once
Mm.
you have certain programming. It will show up, and it's going to wear different masks, and different characters are going to show it to you, but it's just going to keep showing up. And I've done a lot of work, and it still shows up here and there. It's nowhere near as devastating to me, or I recognize it now for what it is, and I'm just like, oh, okay,
Right.
maybe I need to tweak some things inside of me. uh but yeah, that was my story. It's like that I'm just not good enough, you know um for other people, in relationships, for certain jobs, for whatever it is. And I'm just like, nope, I'm done with that. Like, I'm breaking up with that belief because it is not serving me, and it's not serving
Right.
anybody else, right? Because that's the thing with limiting beliefs. You're holding yourself back from being your best self. And I feel like we are all here put on this earth with a purpose, whatever it is. We all have bright, shining lights within us, and we need to go and
Mm.
shine them into the world. And if
Right.
you're stopping that, you're doing disservice to everybody else who is supposed to see that light, like, on your path.
It's true.
So it's
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 true.
not it's kind of taking yourself out of the equation. Like, I'm here as a tool from the universe to help all these people, and that's what I believe in. Same with you. You're doing amazing work, and you're sharing your story, and you're, helping other people share their story, and that's your gift. And whatever other gifts you have. And if you weren't here, those people that are going to watch this would have not watched it and would have not gotten their lives changed.
Right? And I always say that's why I'm here is because I've had this pulling to do this, over and like you said, it's not just the bad things that face you. Sometimes it's the good things that are knocking on your door and you're just like, I don't have time for you right now. Right? I'm busy. I'm busy doing my life. And that's what's happened here for me. It was the same thing. And I'm sure you've had that too. You've had struggles with your what you
Yeah.
practice, right, is I'm not good enough to do it. I'm, never going to have enough clients or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you can't get rid of that inside feeling that this is
Yes.
what I should be doing, right?
Because it's the excitement, right? It's like somebody lights a fire in you, and you're like, oh my gosh, you can't shut it down.
Right. Right. And if one person, and like tonight talking to you, I've learned a couple of things, and we never stop learning. You can never stop learning. And if one
Yeah.
person hears one word or one sentence and it changes their life, then that's our
Then it was
purpose.
worth it, right? Then it was worth it. Just even for that one person, it was worth that time that
Right.
we put into this.
I have to say one thing that held me back, I don't know about you, but for a long time was, well, if I'm not on a stage with 20,000 people in an auditorium speaking, then I can't be making a difference. So why
Yeah.
bother? You know?
But it's that ripple effect, right? that little pebble that turns into an avalanche later on.
Right? Exactly. So what's your future? You talked about your 6-week program that you're planning on. What else do you have planning on here in the future?
uh Honestly, I just want to get my name out there. I want to, it's not even for me, but like I said, I love what I do and I know it can help so many people. So I want to help more people and, do that because I feel like everybody needs it, especially now with all these changes happening and kind of, people are starting to realize that like the healthcare system isn't really for their benefit and that they need to take their health into their own hands. And by no means I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose people or anything like this. And
Right.
I don't want to. Like I just want to
Yeah.
empower people and educate. And so honestly, that's my goal and that's my purpose is just to educate and empower as many people as I can and
Awesome.
have fun while doing it because I love doing it. I love meeting people and getting to know their stories because everyone is so amazingly unique.
And
And
do you find that I'm sure you find that when people finish a session or, even talk to you or whatever, they're probably more i- impacted than they thought they would be, right?
yeah,
Like more wowed at the end than they
yeah,
thought, right? They
yeah,
probably were skeptical going in, like nothing's going to really happen.
yeah, yeah. Some people, you know, laugh that a lot of sessions like people will cry and it's like I didn't know this was a crying session. Like I'm like, well, it's not up to me. It's just stuff gets released and so yeah, some of my clients like, oh, what does Anya do? Oh, Anya makes people cry. Like please don't sell it like that. That is not my selling point.
Well, it's like I tell people the first time I had Reiki many, many years ago in 2008 or 9. And after that, lost my job. I went through a divorce, found myself going in the
Yeah,
beginning process of a divorce. And and then people are like, "Well, why would I want to do that then?" But, here we are 13 years later, and I can tell you it's exactly what had to happen. It was what
yeah,
needed to happen at that time. And it just blew open the doors oh, this
yeah,
this road of self-discovery that I would have
yeah.
never, ever even gotten on if those things hadn't happened.
And
So,
that's beautiful. And that's the power of surrendering to the higher power, right? To
right.
surrender to life and what's to come because we're so focused sometimes on wanting to control and this is how I want my life to look like and be. And life's like, no, but you deserve so much better. There's so much more, you're playing it small, but we're so
Right.
focused and we're like, nope, I'm gonna, so life will, throw you pebbles and you don't trip, and then it's gonna throw stones, and then it's just gonna smack you upside the head. And it's like, wake up, because you need to redirect, right? At least that's been
Exactly.
my journey. I don't know if that's been your journey, but sometimes when I
Oh,
don't listen, just life is just, hardcore.
100%. 100. Smack you upside the head, bricks fall on your head, whatever it takes to get your attention. I
Yeah,
call
and
them
sometimes
the big
those look
potholes,
like tragedies, right? Like sometimes,
right?
like you're saying, like a couple years ago, I went through a horrible depression where honestly, it was a year of just me not wanting to get out of bed. And I mean,
Mm,
thank God for my family and, friends, because every day was pretty much a struggle of like, okay, today my focus is not to commit suicide. Like that's how bad it was. um but I feel like I needed to go through that. I can help people now. I can understand what that's like, and that there is like the other side of it, right? That
mm.
like there is hope at the end of the tunnel type of thing.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that too, because I've suffered from depression. I was on medication for many years and I went through my divorce and all that, and I didn't have insurance for a little bit of time, and
Yeah,
I could not get my medication. And so I had to go through the worst time of my life. I had to go through it without medication, and I got out of it, and I have never been on medication since. I'm not
yeah,
saying that's for everyone because If you need
Yeah,
it, you need it. I'm not,
exactly.
there's no shame in that at all. It's like you do what you got to do. But like you, I went through those times of darkness that were really, really tough. And my best friend, my business partner that I worked with for many years, she she understood, she had her brother dealt with depression and she kind of understood, but I could tell she really didn't get it because she never had gone through it herself.
Yeah.
And at a time during the pandemic, she went through some hardships of her own and she went through a very bad depression, like you talked about. And we caught up again recently and she told me, I never understood what you were talking about. Like I tried.
Mhm.
I really tried to understand your pain. I tried to understand what it meant because I would explain to her, I don't want to get out of bed. I just it's just, I would try and like give her like the juicy details of what it's like and she just was like, I understand. I'm empathetic or sympathetic, but I don't know what you mean. Like I'd never been there. And it's truly not until you've been there that you understand that pain and that
And even then,
darkness.
to a certain level, but everyone's so different, right? Like we could be going through the same thing, but you're going to respond differently and I'm going to respond differently. So it's like it definitely helps when somebody's been through something similar because they can understand on a deeper level, but it's still such a very personalized
Mhm.
you know thing.
Very true.
But you were saying like with what happened and not having insurance. I'm a firm believer that life throws at you everything that you can handle, right? So it's like maybe it was just trying to show you that you were a lot stronger than you thought you were, and that's why I got you
Right?
through like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, what does that go back to? It goes back to the trust. You think it's a trauma or you think it's a tragedy at the time, and it may be. I'm not minimizing
Oh yeah.
tragedies in our lives, they happen. But it's how to bounce back and how to get through those times that
And finding the silver
and
lining in it,
finding the
right?
silver liner,
And
right?
like even if maybe if there's not a silver lining, but like how can I be a better person from this situation, right?
Right,
Because sometimes, I've had clients that have lost their kids,
right.
which I'm not saying there's a silver lining to that. That, obviously I have not gone through it. I don't know what it's like, but maybe, you going through it, maybe you can help other parents go through that, and be a support system or, whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that there's others there's another side to everything, and I feel like once you go through it you can definitely help others and just come out of it a stronger person.
Especially right. And I agree with you. There are things in life, like you said, you lose a child or whatever. My sister lost her child. I can't relate to that. I can't understand it. But, like you said, what can you take from it? Because unfortunately, life is going to happen. And like
Yeah,
we talked about before, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to reach this level and then I'm not never going to have problems and life is going to throw us some
yeah,
curveballs either
yeah,
way. So it's being as strong as you can be to get through those tough times because they are going to happen. They are going to happen.
yeah,
And we just can't control what is going to happen around us and it's having that strength, that resilience to life as it punches us in the face sometimes, to get through it
start
and
dodging, right.
right, and ultimately to help others though, because I think
Yeah,
that that's the beauty in that is being able to help someone else that you can, reach behind you and say, "Hey, I come with me. I know the way. I've been there and I can help you." And that's the circle of life, right? Is that.
exactly, just helping others and seeing the power in that because it does help. It's like you were saying with your friend. It If you know that somebody went through something similar that you did, you automatically feel connected, right?
Correct.
You're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, you actually understand a little bit of what it's like. So it helps that person because if somebody doesn't know what you went through, I mean, they can be sympathetic with you, but you're still missing that connection, right?
Yeah. When I was going through my divorce, I reluctantly went to a divorce group through my church at the time, and I did not want to go to a group. I didn't believe I thought they were stupid. I thought they were useless. I didn't understand, why do I want other people to know the crap I'm feeling? Like, you
Yeah.
know? And the funny thing is that when I went, and we had some, obviously some leaders of the group, and I remember saying to them, like we talked about earlier, they were on the other side, right? And so they would talk and I'd be like, "But you don't understand." In my head, I would say, "You're talking, but I'm not listening because you don't know my pain is different than your pain, okay? What I'm feeling is not what you're too happy and you've moved on and all that. That good for you."
Yeah.
But but I just couldn't grasp it, you know what I mean? And then I went through the program, and you hear things and it kind of, some sticks, some doesn't. But then as years go by, and I would think of something and I would reflect back to that episode that they showed us, and I'd be like, oh, okay. It was like a little lifeline, right?
Yeah.
And then years later, I led the group for many years.
Wow.
And what a difference that was, right? And now I was helping other people. And it wasn't until one of the ladies came up to me and was literally in tears after one of our sessions. And she's like, "You've changed my life. I can't thank you enough." And it was like, wow. And then I saw the whole picture of where I came from, what I went through,
Yeah.
my silly thoughts at the time, and how it all has to connect, and we have to be open to it for it to feel
Exactly.
right, to feel it. So, yeah, thank
For
you.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
no problem. So, what's your definition of bliss?
Like bliss is that sweet spot in life, right? Like to me, that's what it is. Like it's being grateful and being content.
Mm.
Um, yeah, with whatever's happening. I think, to me, gratitude is such a big part of life. And I know I take things for granted, and I sometimes forget to be grateful. Um, but I think that's what bliss is, like appreciating the things that you have and being able to put yourself in that mindset. Because again, it's all about mindset, right?
Yeah,
Like you can have a mansion and you can have, the best marriage and, all the things that people would wish for, but you can still be depressed and not happy and, feeling, whatever kind of feelings. And you could be somebody who has nothing and feel like the
right.
happiest and luckiest person in the world. So, yeah,
That's
I think bliss
true.
is one, it's a state of mind, but yeah, it's a state of mind where it's just like, I'm happy, I'm content, and yeah, just it feels good.
Feels good,
It feels
right?
warm, like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day.
I love that. Thank you. So how can people reach you? Of course, I'm going to put it in the description wherever I can on this episode on YouTube and on our podcast. But how can people reach Anya?
So you can reach me through Instagram, YouTube, or just go on my website, and they're all the same. It's intuitive Ania Markiewicz. I'm going to spell my name. It's ANIAMARKIEWICZ. I know it's a mouthful.
Well, think
uh,
I will have it somewhere written down.
yeah. But yeah, my website's up. Like I said, I'm starting to put more videos up on YouTube because I want to share my experience in my life and the things that I know with other people. Again, I want to educate and touch as many people as possible with my knowledge. And I always post stuff on Instagram, and just kind of getting people inspired, and having them look at life in a little bit of a different light. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, Anya, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure to talk to
thank
you,
you.
to get to know you, and I've learned some things,
I'm glad. That's
which
awesome.
is the beauty of all of this, right? So thank you so much, and hopefully this will be the last time.
I know. I hope so too. It was so nice meeting you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Anya. All right, thank you guys for watching or listening, and until next time, thank you.